Hi, in this video we're going to be talking about the options handout part 2. So this is the second handout. This week we have two handouts because options is a big chapter and we're spending the whole week reviewing and going over options, and this is the second spreadsheet. Now in this spreadsheet I'm talking about writing covered calls. So now before you start the spreadsheet you should definitely read the textbook, and specifically page 574 in the options chapter 14, you'll see that there's a table 14.6, covered call writing. And this table on 14, this 14.6 table is where what I utilize to kind of craft the assignment. So this, in the textbook, it goes over it reinforces how to calculate this spreadsheet and this table. So if you should read that section first of the textbook before you attempt to work on the spreadsheet. Okay, so pause the video, go into your textbook, read over that section of the textbook. I'll wait. And then when you're done, come back. Okay, pause the video. Okay, so now you're back, you've read that section of the textbook, you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. So here, you'll even notice that the numbers in the textbook, 7350, 250, 100, 250, 350, are going to be the same as the handout because I use that as the model for the first column. So here, in part A, I'm saying price of the stock is unchanged at $73. So if the stock price doesn't change, just like in here, price of the stock is unchanged. You see how I kept that very similar? So that's why reading the textbook and looking at this section will help you understand this better than this video alone. But anyway, moving forward. So we want to calculate the profit. So quarterly dividends received. Now, if it's a covered call, I am going to receive the dividends. So I'm just going to plus the quarterly dividends. Proceeds from the sale of the call contract. So I'm going to sell the call. So let's see here. So the call price, the current premium price on the call is $250. So, and my strike price on the call is $80. So if I look back here, you see that it says the proceeds from the sale of a call. Because remember, we're writing a covered call, which means when we write a call, we're actually selling it. So we're going to receive this premium times the number of shares. Okay. So there's 100 number of shares per contract. There's 100 shares per contract. We're dealing with one contract here. So the total net profit will be my quarterly dividends plus my proceeds from the sale of the call. So the covered call, if the price doesn't change, that's a good situation because I'm going to receive the premium plus the dividend, and I'm also going to keep the stock. So I'm not making any profit on the stock because the price didn't change. And that's what they're showing here as well. The total profit will be $350, and that's what we're trying to show. Okay, so that's the best situation. Because remember, we're writing covered calls, which means we're creating the call contract and selling it to somebody else to earn the premium, which is different than buying a call. Because there's two sides. So you have the call writer and the person who's going to buy the contract. So right here, we're the person writing and selling the contract. So let me move on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop in, if you can see this here, I'm going to drop in I'm going to freeze the panes here. Okay, so that's a little Excel trick so I can move to part B and still have the information up here. Okay, so stock price goes up to $81. So do I still receive the quarterly profits? I mean, the quarterly dividends? Yes, because I own the stock. A covered call means I have to buy the stock first before I could write the contract. So since I'm buying the stock, I do get the dividends. Proceeds from the sale of the call. Well, that's always going to be the premium times the amount of shares in the contract. Okay, capital gain or loss. So what this basically means is I purchased the stock at $73.50. Now, the strike price is at $80. So if the stock price goes above 80, which it does here, it means I'm going to have to sell the stock to the person I wrote the contract for at the strike price. So basically, the way to think of it is I am selling the stock at 80. I purchased it at 73.50. That's going to be my capital gain. But I'm going to have to multiply this by, I'm going to have to multiply this by, let me put parentheses here. I have to multiply this by the number of contracts. So 650, yes, just making sure the textbook has the same numbers. So 650 would be my gain. So I'm going to plus 650 plus 250 plus 100, and my profit is 1,000, which you can see in the textbook is the same thing, which is good. That's why I'm keeping close to the textbook example. So if you get confused by this, you can go back into the textbook and read over and their explanation of how these are calculated as well. Okay, so let's move into the next. I'm going to do a lot of these examples because it is a difficult topic. It's not something that people get right away. Okay, so example C, what if the stock price goes to 90? Okay, so my quarterly dividend, it's a covered call, which means I own the stock, so I receive the dividend. The proceeds from the sale of the call is going to be my premium times the number of shares. And then my capital gain or loss, again, is going to be, I have to sell it at the strike price of 80. And if I take away what I paid for it at the market price and multiply by 100, keeping in mind I must put in parentheses on the first two, this would be my capital gain. 100. So you see that, again, I'm making $1,000. So this is something that if the stock price keeps going up, if this stock price was, let's see here, it's a little smaller. Okay, so if this stock price was 100, I'm still only going to make $1,000. If the stock price went up to 125, stock price went up to 500, I'm only going to make $1,000 because I locked in the sell price at 80. So as long as the stock price is above 80, I'm going to make $1,000 profit. So the stock price can be any number above $80. I'm limiting the amount of profit I can make because it's a covered call. And the person who bought the call contract makes the money between 80 and 90, not me. Okay, so let's look at example D. What if the stock price goes down to $71? Okay, so here we have to look at this. Again, this is also detailed here in the handout. In the textbook. So if it goes to 71, I still receive the dividends. Oops. Oh, we're doing something differently here. Yeah, so I kind of... Okay. So if the stock price goes down, I'm just noticing that the textbook did a little bit differently, but here on the part C, if we go back to part C, I just put in my capital gain. They put in the total capital gain minus the loss on the call. I kind of just simplified it in my formula, but you can do it either way as long as you get to a net profit of 1,000. Okay, going to part D, stock price drops to 71. So my proceeds from the sale of the call is that means that is the premium times 100 shares. That's the proceeds from the sale of the call. Quarterly dividends received. That's my dividends received. So the capital gain or loss. Now, in this case, I purchased it at 73 and it fell to 71. So again, I would say 71 minus my purchase price times 100. Okay, so you see a loss of 250. So my profit, if I add these three together, I have a profit of 100, which matches the textbook. Good. Now, what if the price drops to 60? So $60, again, the proceeds from the sale of the call. So when I sell the call, I'm earning the premium. So premium times the 100 shares. And the dividend, since I own the stock, I'm going to receive the dividends. Now the capital gain or loss is going to be the 60 minus the 73 times 100. Okay, so if the stock price goes to 60, it means I'm going to have to have a capital loss because I purchased at 73.50. Stock price is now down to 60, and I have this loss up here of $1,000. So now if the stock price went to 50, I would lose 2,000. If it went to 40, I'd lose 3,000. If it was a 45, so as the stock price drops, I'm losing more and more money on the covered call. So the moral of the story here is in the covered call, you want the stock price to remain the same or go higher to get your profit. If the stock price drops on the covered call, they're not going to execute the contract and you're left with the capital loss. Okay, so that is the first column. I will have you calculate the second column by yourself. Okay. Now, in this handout, there is a second worksheet called naked calls. So covered calls is when you buy the stock to cover yourself so you can limit you can limit your losses. Now, a naked call is something that we can do when we don't own the stock. So let's look at a situation if we're not buying the stock first, meaning we don't own the stock and we write a contract on it, that's going to be what we call a naked call. Okay, so let me put in I'm going to freeze the panes again. Okay, so in the first example, if the stock price is unchanged at 73. So if it's unchanged, quarterly dividends received. This is a trick question. I don't receive any dividends ever on a naked call because I don't actually own the stock, so I'm not going to receive the dividends. And that's detailed in the chapter. It does describe that if you don't own the stock, you don't receive dividends. Now, proceeds from the sale of the call. So the sale of the call is the premium times the shares. So my net profit here would be $250 if the stock price remains unchanged on a naked call. So let's go to the next example. Now, the next example, the stock price goes to $81. So do I receive dividends? No, because I don't own the stock on naked call, so there would be no dividends. The proceeds from the call, again, is the strike price, is the premium price times the amount of outstanding shares. And the capital gain or loss, now, it's a naked call. So if it goes up to $81, it means it's going to execute. It's going to be, I'm going to have to sell to them at $80 a share. Now, which means I'm going to have to buy it I don't own the stock, so I'm going to buy it at the current rate to sell to them for 80. So this would basically be, to calculate the gain or loss, I would say the call price minus the price of the stock times the number of shares. And again, I have to put brackets in the first two. Okay, so I'm losing $100, which you could see that if I have to purchase the stock at 81 to sell to them at 80, I'm losing $1 a share. So in this case, if I find the sum of these three, I'm going to make a profit of 150 if the stock price goes to 81. But what if the stock price goes to 90? So if the stock price goes to 90, what happens now? So let me just move this a little lower. Okay, so I still don't receive any dividends. My proceeds are going to be the premium. When I sell the call contract, the premium times the shares. Now the capital gain or loss. Again, I am selling it to them at 80, which means I'm losing $10 a share because I have to buy it at 90 to sell it to them at 80. So I lose $10 a share. And I'm losing $10 a share on 100 shares. So again, here would be a $750 loss. So the more the stock price goes up, the more money I'm losing. So if the stock price went to 100, I lose 1,700. 125, I'm losing $4,000. $200 a share, I'm losing. So naked calls, since there's unlimited ceiling, the stock price can go as high as it goes. I could be subject with a huge amount of losses on the naked call. That's why the covered call is safer, because I already own the stock. So I'm only, I cannot lose more than the difference between the stock price and the strike price. Here, since I don't own the stock, I can lose an unlimited amount of money depending on where the stock price, how high the stock price goes. So on a naked call, I don't want the stock price to go up very much at all, because that's increasing my losses. But what if the stock price goes down? What if it drops to $71 a share? So in this case, again, my proceeds from the sale of the call, and that, okay, so like I was saying, I take the premium times 100 shares, and that's my proceeds from the sale of the call. Now, quarterly dividends I do not receive. Capital gain or loss. Now, the capital gain or loss, if the stock price drops below the strike price, that means the contract is not going to execute. It's going to expire. So, because the person buying the contract is not going to want to buy the stock at 80 when he can buy it in the marketplace at 71. So this means any time that on a naked call that the stock price is below the strike price, the contract's not going to execute it. So there's zero gain or loss on that situation. So my net profit is going to be $250. Now, if the stock price drops to 60, it's going to be the same effect. I'm going to get my proceeds from the sale of the contract. There's no dividends because I don't own the stock, and there's no capital gain or loss because the contract's not going to execute, and I don't own the stock, so there's no capital gain or loss for me, because they're not going to want to buy it at 80 when they can buy it at 60. So this contract would expire, my net profit would be $250. Okay, so this is an important concept. This concept is basically saying that I'm writing a call contract naked, meaning when I say naked, it means I don't own any shares. So if we're writing the contract at $80, a call of $80, that means the person buying the contract is hoping the stock price will go above 80. Now, the stock price went down. So if the stock price goes down, that means that they're not going to execute the contract. So the contract is going to expire, and I keep the premium from the contract, because I don't own the stock, so I don't care if the stock price goes down. In fact, I want the stock price to go down so the contract doesn't execute, so I could keep my profits, my premium. And that's why naked call can be more profitable than a covered call, because I don't have to worry about losing money in the stock on actually owning the stock. But the only problem is with the naked call, I have unlimited liability. If the stock price keeps moving higher and higher and higher, there's no protection, where the covered call gives you protection from the stock price moving higher. Okay, so that's column 1 on this. So you should work on column 2 and complete that. Okay, I hope this has been helpful in understanding how to write covered calls and naked call contracts and earn money when you're writing the contracts. And remember that if you were confused with this spreadsheet, go to the textbook. The textbook nicely reinforces how to write covered calls, and a nice little breakout here. All right, and then gives you a lot of additional details. So in the spreadsheet, I have us, I have the writing the covered calls and also writing the naked calls, which would mean writing contracts without owning a stock. So it's an important concept. Okay, bye.